Why Alan Watts says you've got work and play completely wrong. Let's begin with the question that most people never ask. Why do we work? And more importantly, why do we think of work as something separate from play? From the moment we're old enough to understand words, we're taught that work is something serious, something noble, something that gives life meaning. Play, on the other hand, is trivial. It's for children. It's what you do when all the important things are done. But Alan Watts, the legendary British philosopher and spiritual entertainer, said something radically different. He said that we've got it completely backwards. That the way we've come to define work and play as opposites, as mutually exclusive, is not only philosophically flawed, it's spiritually dangerous. And if we don't wake up to this illusion, we may spend our entire lives working away the very joy we were born to live. Now, what does that mean? Let's break it down. Alan Watts often pointed out how our culture idolizes effort. We glorify the grind. We celebrate the hustle. We even wear burnout like a badge of honor, as if exhaustion were proof of our virtue. We say things like, "I'm working hard to get ahead," or "I've got to earn my rest." But Watts challenged that very premise. He asked, ahead of what? Rest from what? You see, when you treat work as a means to an end, especially when that end is some vague future moment of happiness you're no longer living, you're deferring life. You're postponing your joy, your curiosity, and your freedom for a reward that may never come. And the irony is, even if it does come, you're so conditioned to struggle that you won't know how to enjoy it.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound insights.
Think about this. When you were a child, what did you want to do all day? You wanted to play, not because it led somewhere, not because it earned you points or prestige, but because it was the point. That was your natural state. Watts argued that play is not childish, it's the essence of life itself. Music is play, dance is play, art is play, and even nature plays. Birds sing, dolphins leap, trees sway in the wind. The entire universe is not marching to the beat of a productivity checklist, it's expressing itself, moment by moment, with no agenda. So why are we the only species that feels guilty for not being productive? Here's where it gets deeper. Watts said, the real reason we do things is because of the fun of it. And if that sounds naive, it's only because we've been brainwashed into thinking that enjoyment is frivolous. But ask yourself, what's the point of all this effort if not to feel joy? Why build the empire, climb the ladder, earn the degree, or chase the goal if not to experience something that feels alive? The tragedy is that most people are so busy sacrificing the present for the future that they never arrive. They become experts at working, but amateurs at living. And here's the philosophical pivot that will change your life if you truly let it in. Watts didn't say to avoid work. He didn't say to drop everything and go live in the woods. He said to reimagine work, to see it not as a burden, but as a form of play. Not as something you suffer through to get somewhere, but something you do for the joy of doing it. Like dancing. You don't dance to get to the end of the song. The point of dancing is the dance. And when you can bring that spirit into your work, when you stop thinking of it as a means to an end, it transforms. It becomes a game, a performance, a ritual. And paradoxically, that's when you become not just happier, but more powerful. Because people who work with the energy of play radiate something different. They're not grinding, they're flowing. They're not trying to prove something. They're expressing something. So, let me ask you something honest. Are you working to live, or are you living to work? And deeper still, has your entire life become a strategy? A long to-do list you hope will one day buy you permission to feel free. What if you reversed that? What if freedom was the starting point, not the destination? What's believed that the most profound shift we can make is to remember what we already knew as children, that life isn't a problem to be solved or a mountain to be climbed. It's a song to be sung, a dance to be danced, or a game to be played. So the next time you find yourself caught in the loop of obligation, pause and ask, am I playing right now, or am I performing? Because that one question might be the key to unlocking a kind of joy, creativity, and aliveness that no paycheck or promotion could ever buy. The illusion of seriousness, why taking life too seriously, is the fastest way to miss it. We've been conditioned to believe that the more serious we are, the more mature we are. That seriousness is a mark of responsibility, of intelligence, of being grounded in reality. But Alan Watts had a radically different take. He believed this obsession with seriousness is not a sign of wisdom, but a symptom of forgetting what life actually is. When we take life too seriously, we begin to treat it like a problem to be solved, rather than a mystery to be experienced. We start playing roles instead of playing the game. And in that shift from playfulness to performance, we lose touch with the very thing that makes life worth living. Watts often joked that God, or the universe, is playing hide and seek with itself. That the whole point of existence is for consciousness to forget itself, to dive into the illusion of separation, and then slowly, playfully, remember what it is. And if that's true, then taking life seriously is like getting so lost in your Halloween costume that you forget you're wearing one. You start believing that your identity, your job, your struggles are all ultimate truths. But you forget that you're playing a part in a cosmic drama, not trapped in a prison of obligations. And the more you believe in the seriousness of it all, the more you suffer, not because life is inherently painful, but because you've mistaken the mask for the face. We see this everywhere. People grinding away at jobs they hate, wearing stress like a badge of honor. Parents who forget how to laugh because they're too focused on being perfect. Entrepreneurs who trade joy for hustle, believing that if they just work hard enough, they'll finally earn the right to relax. But Watts would say, why not relax now? Why not laugh now? Why not dance your way through the work instead of dragging your soul through it just to earn a reward later? The problem is that seriousness is often rooted in fear. The fear of being judged, the fear of failure, the fear of not being enough. We think that if we don't take things seriously, they'll fall apart. But what if the opposite is true? What if the more lightly we hold life, the more gracefully it moves through us? What if laughter, curiosity, and spontaneity aren't distractions from the real world, but the signs that we're finally in harmony with it? Watts wasn't advocating for irresponsibility, he was pointing to a deeper understanding of responsibility. He believed that when you truly see the interconnectedness of all things, when you realize that this whole show is a cosmic game, you begin to act with more love, more creativity, and more presence. Not because you're being serious, but because you're being sincere. And there's a world of difference between the two. Seriousness is rigid, heavy, ego-driven. Sincerity is alive, light, and rooted in truth. So ask yourself, when did you learn that you had to be serious to matter? Who told you that playfulness was childish, that joy was indulgent, that lightness meant you weren't trying hard enough? What if the opposite was true? What if the people who laugh the most, love the most, and live with the most wonder are actually the ones who are closest to reality? The dance of purpose, why doing what you love isn't optional. It's essential. We live in a culture that's obsessed with purpose, but it defines purpose in the most backward way imaginable. We're told that purpose is something grand, something distant, something we must chase. It's a mission statement, a career path, a legacy. And so, we go out searching for it, often in panic, trying to find that one thing that will finally make us feel like we matter. But Alan Watts flipped this idea on its head. He said the problem isn't that we haven't found our purpose, it's that we've forgotten what purpose actually is. Watts argued that real purpose is not something you find through effort, it's something you feel through alignment. It's not a destination. It's not a job title. It's not a why that you spend your whole life trying to justify. Real purpose is much more immediate. It's the feeling of being so engaged in what you're doing that time disappears. It's the sensation that arises when your inner world and your outer actions are in perfect harmony. It's play, it's music, it's flow. And when you're in that space, you don't need anyone to validate your worth or explain your path, you just know. You are the purpose. That might sound too simple, too romantic, even irresponsible. After all, we're told that doing what you love is a luxury, not a necessity. But that it's something you squeeze in on the weekends, not something you build your life around. But Watts would say this is exactly why so many people are miserable. They've traded the dance of life for a treadmill. They've sacrificed their joy for security and then wondered why they feel empty even when they succeed. We think we can ignore what lights us up and still live a meaningful life. But that's like trying to breathe without air. Doing what you love isn't selfish, it's your responsibility. Because when you follow what truly excites you, you don't just light yourself up, you become a light for others. You become more generous, more creative, more alive. You're not dragging yourself through life, you're dancing with it. And Watts believed that this dance is not optional. It's essential. Because when we ignore it, when we suppress that inner pull toward joy, we become bitter. We become resentful. We start blaming the world for our own disconnection. And that leads to a society full of people who are technically functioning but spiritually asleep. So the real question isn't what's my purpose? It's what makes me come alive. What could you do for hours without checking the clock? What if you always loved but were told wasn't practical? What did you stop doing the moment life got serious? Those are the clues. That's the trailhead. And you don't need to leap into the unknown or quit your job tomorrow. You just need to take one step in the direction of that aliveness. One moment of choosing play over performance. One act of expression instead of suppression. Because the dance of purpose isn't about having it all figured out. It's about feeling your way through the music of your own existence. And when you follow that rhythm, when you trust that what you love is not random but revealing, you don't just find your purpose, you become it. The end of the game, why letting go is the only way to win at life at some point on the journey, after all the striving, all the effort, all the attempts to make something of yourself, you start to notice a strange truth. The more you try to control life, the more it slips through your fingers. The tighter you cling to outcomes, expectations, and identities, the more suffering you experience. And eventually, if you're paying attention, you're forced to confront a question that Alan Watts asked over and over again: what if the whole point of life is not to win, but to let go? We've been trained to treat life like a competition, a race with winners and losers, a ladder we must climb, a system we must beat, a game we must win. But Watts reminded us that this mindset is the root of our disconnection, our anxiety, our endless dissatisfaction. Because if life is a game that must be won, then every moment becomes a test. Every person becomes a rival. Every mistake becomes a threat. And every day becomes a performance rather than an experience. But what if that's not the game at all? What if the real game is not about winning, but about playing well with joy, with presence, with freedom? Letting go doesn't mean giving up. It means stepping back from the illusion that you're in charge of everything. It means releasing the belief that your worth is tied to your productivity, that your identity is fixed, that your value comes from proving something. It means trusting that the same intelligence that grows trees, moves oceans, and beats your heart knows how to guide your life if only you stop trying to micromanage it. When you let go, you begin to flow. You stop resisting what is and start dancing with it. You stop pushing reality around and start moving in rhythm with it. This is the secret that sits quietly at the center of so many spiritual traditions, and yet we miss it because we're too busy trying to master life. But Watts said it clearly: the meaning of life is just to be alive. It is so plain and so obvious and so simple. And yet, everybody rushes around in a great panic as if it were necessary to achieve something beyond themselves. And that panic is the product of forgetting. Forgetting that we were never here to conquer life, we were here to feel it, to experience it, to be it. And ironically, when you let go of the need to control, life starts to open up. You begin to notice beauty in the mundane. You find laughter in the silence. You feel connected even when you're alone. You realize that you don't need to chase anything to be whole, and you already are. And from that space, not of effort, but of surrender, you become capable of extraordinary things. Not because you're trying harder, but because you're finally aligned. So, as we reach the end of this journey, I'll leave you with one final, piercing question. What would your life look like if you stopped trying to win it? What if you stopped calculating, stopped performing, stopped pretending, and simply trusted yourself to be? What if the real victory was letting go of the need to win at all? Because maybe the end of the game isn't a finish line. Maybe it's waking up in the middle of the game, smiling, and remembering, oh right, this was always just for fun.